So Flexkeeping really does two things in general. One is it helps teams collaborate way better and faster. And the other part is we automated a lot of processes, a lot of repetitive tasks, a lot of scheduling and similar tasks.
Housekeeping and yeah, there's a lot going on with your app, I think, these days. And I love it, the thought of it. We're going to learn more about it here in a minute. But the fact that this labor shortage, I think you're experiencing in Europe as we are in the States, like these people are not coming back to work. Especially in housekeeping, but in other areas as well. Like front desk, what I've heard recently from managers is front desk and housekeeping are the most difficult. But I would imagine maintenance and everybody else, because they're all competing with other jobs that are out there. And if hoteliers don't get savvy about how they do operations, making it easier on the people that they do have, making them more efficient, more productive, happier,
Yeah,
flexible. I don't know. What are we going to do?
exactly.
So why don't you describe what problem flex keeping is solving?
Yeah. Well, all of that and actually much more really. But you're right. You're right. So obviously staffing or lack of it is the biggest problem the industry has currently. So I'd say one of the big impacts we have is on that, and how we help with that is that so Flexkeeping really does two things in general. One is it helps teams collaborate way better and faster. And the other part is we automated a lot of processes, a lot of repetitive tasks, a lot of scheduling and similar tasks. And what happens with that is that naturally, organically, we save a huge amount of time in operations. And this is the first way how it impacts the staffing issue as well, because you need less staff to do the same thing at the end of the day. Um, but there's many more levels. So one of the ones that you mentioned is happier staff. So our story really goes back to 2012 when I was a housekeeper myself in Yellowstone National Park. And how it started is I just saw, so we had the classical setup in hotel operations, which is as a staff member, you get a piece of paper with your rooms. And that's basically it. Some of our supervisors had a radio and there was a phone in the room. So if you want to communicate with other departments, it's actually via paper. If I had a maintenance ticket, it got to the maintenance department the next day or in the afternoon. If the front office wanted to know which rooms I've already cleaned, they would probably have to call the supervisor on the radio, and then she would have to walk over to me and so on and so forth. You see, so because of that, we were losing a hell of a lot of time. I, as a staff member, never knew what's going to surprise me when I come to my card. Is there extra rooms for me when I'm going to go home at 3 or 4 or 2? Like there's a stress factor. There's hundreds of calls for a supervisor on the floor. And the biggest problem next to that is the quality of the service, can at huge risk. There was numerous times where we had made a mistake that was not picked up because there was no time, or guests had to wait to check in, or just many, many things. So, second level of how we impact that same staffing and quality problem. And so, automation for streamlining communication. So, as I mentioned, is guest service improves, service gets delivered way faster. Be it a check-in, just the fact that everyone knows at any time in operations what's going on, what's the status of a task, and so on, naturally improves so many things. And then at the end of the day, hoteliers, managers, owners get data, and they get that data in real time, which means you can move from reactive to proactive. You can move to data driven instead of just kind of feeling based or word of mouth based management. And so there's so much more, Jason. So the impacts are vast. And yeah, hospitality absolutely needs a platform like Flexkeeping to become more efficient.
Yeah, like what you first described, I call the communication breakdown that happens in the back office of hotels, and it's just restaurants. I did a little research on the hotel side. and found that there was a tremendous amount of communication breakdown, and people were trying to manage with paper, pen and paper, and email and walkie talkies that sometimes were working properly and sometimes weren't. So yeah, and just the frustration level on and again with the housekeeping, and I know you go beyond housekeeping, but just for a housekeeper burdened with that job, let's say they're doing 10 rooms that day, I don't know, could be more, but I mean that's a lot. And then on top of that, have this communication struggle.
Yeah. No,
Wow.
no, communication between staff in hospitality in general, as you said, restaurants and everything else is, I think, hugely um, underestimated in terms of the importance and how much it impacts everything beyond the sheer communication. Like you said, um, it's usual that an organization like that combines emails, WhatsApps, phones, walkie-talkies, radios, paper, and everything together. And just imagine one organization doing essentially one thing, delivering either a great dish or a great room, which is restaurant or hotel, has to combine so many complex channels just to align on one thing. So it's crucial that you simplify that you unify that you automate that information, because otherwise staff is wasted their time on non-value added things, like fishing or looking for information or just communicating basic stuff instead of spending that time on higher quality.
Right.
And yeah, that's super important. That's really key to then move on and become strategic, deliver better service. Focus on staff happiness, which is a huge part, which needs to be done to tackle the staffing issue. That's another topic. I'm not sure if we were talking about it today, but it's so important, so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Well, how do you describe your solution, your application?
So on a global level, we describe Flexkeeping as a hotel operation platform that essentially helps teams collaborate way better and helps automate processes in operations. That's on a global scale. But then operations is very wide. So um, it's a platform that connects the whole organization or the whole team in any property, and then specifically also helps them be more efficient and more productive in their daily tasks. So this is how we describe Flexkeeping, what it does. And then essentially it helps staff do a better job, do a more efficient job, become smarter, spend more time on the tasks that matter more on quality, more on better relations with their guests, more on delivering guest service and quality, rather than losing that time on the things that I previously mentioned. That's a very big parameter, sorry, very big part of what Flexkeeping delivers through the collaboration part and through the automation part, which then takes away all that repetitiveness and non-value added stuff. And then beyond that, what we deliver and how we do it is you get data, as I also mentioned before. And this is a huge change because you can't collect information about what's going on through 5 different means of communication. Some of them are on paper and so on. And you definitely can't do that in real time. And this is the big thing, which is also a very big thing to be still discovered in the future for hoteliers, is the power of operational data and how you can then vest that and how you can turn that into better staff training, better guest services, better offerings to guests, happier staff, happier guests. And it's a huge opportunity that we just started to discover as an industry, is how to turn that data that you collect on a daily level immediately into valuable and actual insights.
So give us an example of some of the real-time data that you're collecting that I would assume general managers or housekeeping directors are acting on.
Yeah. Um, One of the examples, so we by using Flexkeeping, basically every detail that's happening in operations, meaning what's the current status of your operations, what's the trend, when are we checking in, checking out guests compared to cleaning rooms, fixing maintenance problems, delivering services, and so on. So some of the examples would be, for example, if a guest orders room service, clearly you have a standard. Let's say you want to deliver that in 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes or less. Maybe there are multiple departments in bigger resorts, bigger structures involved in that. So someone needs to prepare the dish, another one picks it up, the third one delivers it, and the fourth one picks up the tray afterwards. So what we do there is we make sure that all those service tasks are dispatched to the teams in the right time, and that we also monitor that the teams deliver that service in the right time. So if anything is not going as smooth as it should, we proactively make sure that teams are aware of that, that they need to maybe be faster. If there's any bottleneck, that they resolve it. So that's the in the moment thing that we do. Right afterwards, or all next to that, we also provide management with information, for example, how long it currently takes to deliver a room service order to a room. We also let them know if a service took longer, so that maybe that guest might not be happy about that, so that they can proactively act on that before that guest actually becomes unhappy. On an analytical level, we would, at the same thing, give you an overview of your most popular dishes in that season or on that day or in that week, so that you can amend your menu, sell better or sell actually the services that your guests want, and just optimize your menu on the cost and on the revenue side. So there's many more examples, but only in the, let's say, guest service example, there's three ways, we impact that immediately via real-time data. And also for the guests, in such an example, we would also provide guest information that if they order some service, an estimation of when that service will be delivered, kind of like ordering a Uber and knowing when your car is going to arrive, So those are all the different ways you can improve the daily operations by just having real-time information and data around services and everything that's going on.
So what kind of results are your customers, your hotels, experiencing? Like, what's the feedback from them?
Yeah. Well, the first one that happens is the time savings are just enormous. So just sheer saving time on all those tasks repetitive things that I mentioned before, and through automations as well and better collaboration. So the first thing that they do is they spend more time on quality. They can spend more time on training. They can spend more time with guests, and that's the first initial feedback that we always get. Also, the stress factor for people like housekeeping managers and other heads of departments drops down immensely, because imagine a housekeeping manager in a 500-600 room hotel. They are just, they get calls all the time. They can't do anything. They're just, an answering machine. And that's practically every HOD's probably workday. So the level of their stress is really something we impact a lot. So de-stressing them a lot. So, as some of they say, just giving them their lives back is sometimes even the situation. The other then things that happen is we also impact their costs, of course. Some is for the time, the other is through them being more efficient in the way they use their resources, their amenities, their materials that they use, for example, in maintenance. By providing them analytics, by providing them clearer data on what needs to be fixed, they can also then optimize what they use, as in spare parts, as in preventive maintenance, prevent the most frequent mistakes and so on. Cleaning substances and other substances that are used in maybe housekeeping are also optimized, because you now have optimal processes how you do stuff, because you have SOPs. Again, you're not disturbed. You have more time to do a better job and to train people. Less electricity, less paper, less kind of consequent resources are being used. Also, less amenities could be used sometimes, because there's clearer tracking, and hence a better overview, and you have a better control over that. And then what happens from all of that is guest satisfaction increases, and from that in time, revenues also go up, and review scores go up. So there's a whole chain of events that starts with better communication, automation, and then goes all the way to guests feeling that and being happier about that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining me, Luka.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Jason. It was a great talk. Thank you.
You bet.
Bye.